Today's talk is titled 2023, the UUCC Year That Was, to be delivered by Randy Schwalbe. Randy has become a fixture around here. That's an understatement. Serving as the secretary on the UUCC Board of Trustees, the chairman of the worship committee, generates the baseline worship associate scripts, and assembles the service slides you see up here every Sunday morning. And he has teamed up with Andy to establish and run all the Zoom era audio-visual technology. Oh my gosh. There it is. Wow. Randy has written and directed The Folly Show as part of the Pine Dorado Days event since 2018 and is now a member of the Lions Club of Cambria. Ever since he retired from Boeing Satellites in 2012, Randy has engaged in tennis and annual week-long backpacking ventures around the country with the ITCH organization. Itch. You know, the intrepid group of Cambria hikers. Itch is actually appropriate when we have to walk through a mosquito swarm. That would be Mary Sue and yours truly. Randy.
Good morning, and welcome to the final day of 2023. The last time I was up here in an official capacity was January 1st at the other end of this year. And what a year. These past 12 months found no shortage of headlines domestically and on the world stage. And there were very few periods of calm and quiet. Every morning brought in a new wave of craziness from out there. In contrast, the local community and our UU community in particular enjoyed relative calm and sanity, making room for deeper interpersonal relationships and spiritual reflection. It makes one wonder why our world leaders cannot take the time to study our social model here and with envious motivation strive to emulate our way of life. Fat chance. As Stephen Lloyd Moffat shared with us earlier this month regarding the Israeli-Hamas war, quote, right now, both sides need war. Netanyahu needs a war to reestablish the notion that he is the one that will keep Israelis safe. And Hamas needs this to be a horrific war as it possibly can have, end quote. But I am not here to compare our community to the world community. Instead, I want to celebrate the UUCC year that was 2023. So let's start with January 1st and work our way through all 52 Sundays. Yeah, I think I can make it through this. Oh, okay, so, all right, never mind. Okay, here are the 52 sermon title slides at a glance. That's beautiful. This is the mosaic of our year together. Not only do the colorful title slides make an attractive bouquet, but it represents also the colorful bouquet of all the various talks we've had experienced. So let's look at the bigger picture of the past 12 months we have spent together. I researched all the sermons and activities that took place during the past 52 weeks. Yes, today is the 53rd Sunday of 2023, in case you're not keeping track. I found the 52 talks can be affinitized into 11 general themes: beloved community, community outreach, democratic process, environmental justice, faith, interpersonal relationship, lifestyle, religious education, self-awareness, social justice, and spiritual journey. So, which of these themes do you think was the most visited? Any guesses, anybody? Anybody else? Really? Okay. Well, Joel, you got it. Here it is. Spiritual journey. Yeah, the spiritual journey led the way with interpersonal relationships at a very close second. Surprisingly, environmental justice, right here, Wow. Was a bit short-shifted this year. Interestingly, while spiritual scored the most at the other end of the spectrum is faith. Okay. It seems with good reason that this community loves to be encouraged to follow our own spiritual paths, but not so much subscribing to the rules for how to follow a path. We are so UU. So let's look at some of the highlights of these themes. We heard Jessica's fascinating talk on Reiki as her spiritual path, and Shauna Bluestar showing us how to tap into your spiritual overflow. And do you remember John Loring sharing with us his deeply moving talk, connecting the human spirit with nature? And Dr. Joe Morrow, bridging the gap between trauma and spirituality. Very powerful messages indeed. This year, we were blessed, or whatever term works for you, to have 3 elite musical artists grace our pulpit. Jasnam Singh, a professional jazz pianist and composer of the Unity Project, spoke right here in person about one's spiritual life being demonstrated with actions rather than only words from a Sikh perspective. 4 Shillings Short, a Celtic duo, started this year on day 1, speaking about temporal thresholds, the momentary place of transition. And Bryn Albanese graced us with her amazing violin virtuosity and illuminated the vibrations of music and their effect on those in hospice. As it has been for the past several years, we have enjoyed the wisdom of elite speakers such as Michael Esselon, a TED Talk participant who taught us how to face the music and dance. Catherine Reinheid, author of Pay It Forward, expressed her view of kindness versus niceness. And of course, the professor of religious studies at SLO Cal Poly, Dr. Stephen Lloyd Moffitt, speaks to us from this pulpit twice a year. His delightfully engaging style of speaking brings his perspectives to life in a unique style, even during his last visit when he shared with us the origins of the Israeli-Hamas war. Gremlin attack. Ha, ha. The worship committee does its best to keep the Sunday talks like this one to 25 minutes plus or minus. However, the subject matter and its delivery by Dr. Lloyd Moffitt was so engaging, his talk lasted 44 minutes and nobody objected. And if you have not heard, he will be relocating, so his upcoming February 25th talk may be his final in-person appearance. But he loves talking with us, so thanks to the miracles of technology, he will join us via Zoom in the future if he's not in the area. Okay. Speaking of a love affair with this community, we have ministers from both ends of the country who look forward to being a part of our Sunday services. Yes, we must be doing something right. Former Reverend Ken Reed Brown from Hingham, Massachusetts. Retired, okay. Retired Reverend Ken. That did come out wrong, didn't it? Anyway, he spoke about the awakening as the meaning of the word Buddha. And Reverend Kirihara, a Buddhist minister from Maui, spoke about compassion, also from a Buddhist perspective. I heard secondhand that a visitor on Zoom wondered out loud about how it was possible that this little community can schedule such high caliber speakers week after week, year after year. I think it's more than just dumb luck. As it has been exclaimed on many occasions, the advantage of maintaining a Zoom presence during our services not only includes participants who are unable or choose not to attend in person, but hearing individuals from anywhere in the world, time zone permitting. At 7 p.m. from Aarhus, Denmark, Helena Hansen delivered a talk about a musical work she sang in that was performed in Arkansas about the plight of Matthew Shepard. On the topic of religious education, Dr. Lloyd Moffitt entertained us with his fascination of modern day cults. Marianne Anderson gave us another perspective about the other you, universalism. And while on the subject, Judy Butler at our last Worship Committee meeting suggested we spend more time exploring the roots of Unitarian Universalism during the course of next year. A worthy endeavor. So if you're interested, just send me an email and we'll make that happen. Okay. But not all sermons had a preponderance of weighty overtones. Ruth Wilson introduced us to her friend Louie, a puppet. And new on the Cambria scene, Laurie Gardner told us how to be happy when life is crappy. And Sue Davis gave us an awe-inspired talk about finding awe in your life. Yeah. And as I had mentioned before, environmental justice was not on the schedule as frequently as in other years. But when it was, the coverage was in excellent hands. Early in the year, PJ Webb did a deep dive in ocean conservation, and later in the year, Wayne Atto shared the story of our local forests. Sue and Diane each led a congregational circle, the UUCC mission and becoming a beloved community, respectively. This circle format gives members and guests a chance to express their views and feelings on a chosen subject. This is another effective means to strengthen our community, and it works. And a shout out to Andy, who's not with us today, with his gifted speaking voice and demeanor as he engaged in a relatively new format of interviewing that Sunday's speaker. He interviewed Don Howell about democracy in Cambria, and Anita Hupsher, thank you, Anita, about her Hawaiian philosophy called Ho'oponopono. And of course, let's not forget our Summer Sermons by Other People series that is held each Sunday during the month of August. This is a time when we get to hear various perspectives of those who have published and posted their talks as read by many of you. This year's array of Other People's sermons was remarkable in its breadth and profundity. The Paradoxical Commandments, Love Them Anyway by Reverend Robin Lenderman Zucker, Standing at the Precipice by Don Cooley, The True Believer by Reverend Marilyn Sewell, and Standing on Holy Ground by Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Wow. I highly recommend revisiting these sermons found on the past sermons pull-down window of the UUCC website. And one of my favorite sermons of the year, and of most years, is the one in which we get to hear from several future leaders, the scholarship recipients who speak during the Scholarship Sunday service in early June. It is always an inspiration to see these students who have already developed a sense of social and environmental justice taking the next step. And this year we heard an entire talk given by one of the 2018 recipients, Martha Mora, who is on the fast track of social justice campaigns here in SLO County. So I took a moment to affinitize or group the previous 52 Sundays by the UU principles. Again, I ask, which of these principles garnered the most connections? And this should be fairly obvious by now. Any thoughts, any takes? So of all the 52, we remember each week we say this today's service is centered around this principle. So I totaled them all up. Well, yes, indeed, it was principle 3. Yeah, with number 1 a close second. Principles 2, 6, and 7 had a fairly consistent distribution lower in the pack. However, we are looking forward to a significant event in June of next year, that's starting tomorrow, the General Assembly. At this all-Zoom event, the newly revised Article 2 will undergo a final vote. Ken Ng from the state of Washington posted an article over a year ago expressing his concerns about the Article 2 revision. I bring this to your attention here because of the amazing coincidence of his claim and this chart. His concern is that the revised Article 2 will no longer contain the 7 principles. And even though the pro-revision advocates claim the essence of the principles are embedded, Principles 4 and 5 are glaringly absent. There. And look where they are positioned in terms of this year's sermon output. Now, I'm not taking a side here, just pointing out this coincidence. Or is it? Something to ponder. Another critical aspect of our services, the primary output of this community, is the worship associate. Please raise your hand if you have served as a worship associate this year. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, first, thank you. And second, you all did a fabulous job maintaining an air of decorum and propriety while sharing just the right amount of yourself. The WA, short for worship associate, both as a noun and verb. Did you WA last Sunday? The WA is in essence the minister of our Sunday services minus the sermon. And even though each WA is given a WA script for a particular Sunday, the worship committee has gone through great lengths to find every opportunity for a WA to personalize it while maintaining the basic structure of our order of service, something we must maintain or we would experience total anarchy every Sunday morning. It's too bad April 1st falls on a Monday in 2024. Darn. With the notion that the WAs serve as the de facto minister each Sunday, by default, they become the face of UUCC for the week leading into and including that particular Sunday. We all know each other fairly well, but when guests arrive for the first time, they may initially presume the person standing here offering the welcoming statements is the permanent worship associate, if not the minister, her or himself. And this is why Janet said earlier in this service, "My name is Janet Cooper, and I am your worship associate this morning." Even though the Sunday service is the primary product of this community, there is so much more. Last month at the annual membership meeting, you heard from the chairs of the array of committees active in our church. So I will not repeat that performance, but instead reflect on the impact many of our non-Sunday service activities have had on our community as well as the wider community. For starters, an outsider may find it curious to learn just how difficult it is for the NEC, the Nominating Elections Committee, to draft nominees or committee chairs to recruit new members. Passing the National Board dental examination would be a cinch for any of us because of all the teeth pulling we've had to do. But on the other hand, Janet, Ted, and Sue are faced with turning away volunteers for the food bank and highway cleanup, respectively. What is curious is that being a member of the board or one of the committees entails sitting in a safe, cozy space and talking to one another once a month versus schlepping food to drop-off points and making sure everyone gets their share, or risking life and limb picking up disgusting litter on a mile stretch of a narrow road full of speeding vehicles. This would make for an interesting doctoral thesis titled, "What's up with those crazy youths in Cambria?" Even Jan usually has no issue with finding volunteers to serve on the scholarship committee. So I'll cut to the chase, bypassing all those isms and Asians words cluttering up a typical thesis paper. I'll tell you straight out that most of you out there find extreme pleasure in demonstrably helping others. Yes, the work of the board and other committees is important, if not vital, to the operation of this church, but physically doing something that improves the lives of others is richly satisfying. Not necessarily in the sense of self-promotion, but in the sense of spiritual promotion. Case in point, cleaning the stretch of Highway 1 or 46. Nobody gets any special recognition for spending 2 hours in the hot sun picking up other people's trash. But why do I feel a sense of disappointment when 3 others beat me to the punch when Ted or Sue announce an upcoming cleanup session? Mary will remind me that Ted and Sue are trying to be fair by giving others an opportunity to go out and pick up unsightly debris with speeding cars whizzing by, missing us by mere feet. And that defines crazy. You crazy. I estimate that over 1,000 folks have received the gift of food from our food bank drive this past year. The recipients often will not offer an acknowledgement or of appreciation, but each of us knows that this effort makes a real difference in their lives. So it never occurs to us to ask why we bother. We do it because it is our calling. And because of the mere existence of this community, we have the means to do it. But all this should be covered in a future Sunday sermon, which I hope it happens. And like the kids at recess, the members of the UUCC love to play as well. This year saw a marked increase in the number of game nights. When this sanctuary is transformed into the Roman Colosseum, where intense life and death competition ensues. Dolores and Diane offer up rummy cue for blood. Others play Scrabble with Margaret at their own peril. And often the evening will end with a slice of apples to apples, questioning all the answers along the way. We are insufferably UU. I will not forget to mention our legendary potlucks. They are so much fun, especially hanging with those you love and those you will start to love, like our latest installment of new members. Welcome. And the food itself would make for another doctoral thesis titled The Search for the Mystical Force Behind Those Crazy UU Potlucks. It would attempt, but fail, to explain how it is that the portions of proteins, sides, salads, and desserts are close to perfectly matched at every potluck with not a shred of planning or coordination in sight. But the most amazing aspect of our potlucks, meetings, activities, and the Sunday services is the feeling we have when arriving or greeting those arriving as though we have not seen them in years. It's like coming home for the holidays. I believe the answer to the challenge Andy made through his reading at last Sunday's Christmas Eve in the morning service is yes, we can have Christmas here every day. As the last hours of today, this month, and this year slip away, I am not feeling that good riddance of a horrible year sentiment, writing down all my icky personal stuff of the past year onto Post-it notes and then tossing them into a ceremonial fire in someone's grill. Wow. Quite the contrary. Remember that amazing reading you heard earlier today, analyzing the phrase Happy New Year? Well, 2023 did turn out to be happy, after all, here in this community. And come to think of it, it's becoming commonplace. And now you may challenge my gleeful reverie with whatabouts regarding all the dreadful things we've seen and heard from our news outlets. There's no doubt a tremendous amount of turmoil and strife exists out there. Unfortunately, 2023 will not bode well in the annals of history. And according to some reports I've heard, 2024 is shaping up to be even worse. Do you remember the tech bubble that burst in 2000 or the housing bubble blowing up in 2008? Well, the doomsday report I heard was a big all-encompassing bubble will burst next year, landing us right smack in the middle of a depression. Now, I'm not standing here saying this will happen, but 2024 will be anything but a smooth ride. And with that said, is it possible that the happiness we are enjoying within the ranks of our community is a bit self-serving or insensitive, let alone inappropriate or uncompassionate? But consider that the high marks we received for the happiness quotient are organic and the result of the undeniable love permeating throughout the rank and file here. And this is the stuff that makes for a strong community, one that is nurturing and resilient in the face of ongoing stormy weather conditions out there in the world. The truth is, our happiness is none of those horrible adjectives I just mentioned, just the opposite. Can you imagine community outreach, let alone mere survival, if we were a discontented and spiteful crew on a ship in the middle of a tumultuous storm at sea? We would perish, and then what? In a little more than 13 hours from now, we will be saying goodbye to an awesome UUCC year. And for those of you staying up to welcome in the new year at midnight, saying Happy New Year to a loved one near you will actually be true, even though the sample size is a mere 10 seconds. So here's to keeping our momentum of 2023 going into 2024 strong and unwavering. Indeed, making the remaining 31,557,590 seconds happy. I wish for all of us to enjoy a happy New Year.